So while I was building edible landscapes and community gardens in the city and in the Central Valley and making friends with people that knew more about biology than I did, the pieces started to come together where I was very interested in making our communities more resilient and closer to nature. I've always been like an earth, centered person, nature-centered person, but also seeing how the parts fit together where I can make a career out of restoring landscapes and also scratching an itch for myself, getting to know nature. Like I remember just wanting to know the names of the trees. That was my goal, is I just wanted to be able to address the trees by name. And now it's a lot more than that. But there's just a connection thing and a very deep interest in understanding how humans kind of interact with our landscape, historically and in modern times too.
Okay, would you like to share with us any of your concerns about local climate change and its impact on the coastal environment?
Yeah, I think we're in a particularly sensitive area. It's a beautiful area, and we have a lot of resources to protect, but a large portion of our area is right in line with sea level rise. And that's going to affect a lot of things around the Humboldt Bay area. It will change our flood patterns. It will change erosion along our coastline, how sand is deposited on our beaches, how the dunes change. Another thing is also as wind patterns change and climate gets warmer, we lose more and more of our summer fog. And that is the primary moisture that our forests, the redwood forests, but also the Sitka spruce forests and dune forests, that's their primary source of moisture during the summer months. And they really a lot of species rely really heavily on our fog. And unfortunately, that is becoming less and less every year. So we'll see some sort of shifts because of that.
And are there any stories from your culture that you would like to share with us about the oceans, rivers, or bodies of water?
Yeah. So on my mom's side, I am Puerto Rican and Taino in my indigenous heritage from Puerto Rico. And the Taino, all of their creation stories and folklore is rooted in teaching community and teaching what a healthy connection, responsible and respectful connection is to nature, between humans and nature. But out of all the deities and spirits in Taino folklore, Atabe is kind of the goddess deity that is the mother of all, including all fresh water, rivers, streams, oceans, and a big symbol of protection and prosperity. And a lot of folklore surrounding her talks about our responsibility to that. And also the coqui, this rainforest singing frog that is really well known and popular in Puerto Rican culture, Taino culture, throughout the Caribbean. Symbol of protection and good luck, but also it's a symbol of healthy ecosystems, much like our Pacific singing tree frog here, that when you hear the frogs, it's a healthy forest.
What concerns do you have about climate change locally and its impacts on the coastal landscape?
I have lots of concerns about our local environment related to climate change. Lately, where my head's been, it's about the food web. It's about those little crustaceans out there in the ocean that drive our food webs, that allow for us to have fish in the rivers and those nutrients through those fish and the Pacific lamprey or eels we call them, to have them up on the landscapes and those marine derived nutrients. All of those things are challenged if those little critters, those little krill and other little critters end up going under and end up not being able to survive. That's what drives our entire food webs and systems. So if something happens there, as in ocean acidification related to climate change, then that's a really big deal. And everything crashes, including humans' abilities to comfortably live on this planet. That crashes too. So I believe that it's those dynamics that I've been thinking about the most lately, and I feel most pressed to do something about.
Considering the potential development in the Bay, what are some ideas or concerns you may have?
The mega project that is proposed in our bay, or that would involve our bay, and then, to take the turbines, I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. You're talking about offshore wind. Those big projects may certainly have a piece of the puzzle if it comes to fruition, and if it happens. Maybe it would be part of curbing or weaning from fossil fuels, which are driving the carbon in the atmosphere, which drives the ocean acidification, which impacts those little critters out there that are the base of our food webs. So in one sense, I feel like that may be a positive piece of the puzzle, maybe, but no one has shown me how fossil fuels go away. I fear that it won't. I want it to go to a place where that technology is only used in the most extreme emergency situations, such as backups, or if you're in a space out in the middle of, in our rural regions where that is one of the only energy sources that we can muster, then of course, having that ability, I appreciate that. Unfortunately, I don't see the weaning and transition to other things very clearly. I could take a leap of faith, but I feel it's just that, a leap of faith. No one has shown me connect the dots to how fossil fuels suddenly go away because this other technology happens. And looking at our behaviors in this new world order, runaway consumption, the almighty dollar bill being the motivation behind most of our shakers and movers in government positions and in corporate America and corporate international new world orders, their stranglehold on our government, on our power system, on our structures. I don't know if they're going to let fossil fuels go away on account of there's still monies to be extracted from those processes. So until the fossil fuels go away, it's hard to be super enthusiastic that this offshore wind development and other proposed activities in the bay lead to those critters having a healthier life and being able to thrive. Those little crustaceans such as krill and things that are the foundation of our food web. Until we deal with the fossil fuel stranglehold on us, it doesn't go away. So it's hard to be enthusiastic about the environmental impacts of such a mega project without seeing a clear path to fossil fuels going away.
A lot of our elders who are the medicine people and spiritual people of our nation, they all had to endure that type of history. Even my non-native father, when he seen my tattoo, I got my tattoo last year, and when he seen it, he was like, tell me that is drawn, right? And I said, no, I'm sorry, it's tattooed. He's like, that's permanent? And I said, yeah. And he whipped out. He's non-native from Chicago. What are you thinking? what are you doing? You're putting a target on your face. Don't you know how people look at you? Don't you know what people are going to do to you? And he was legitimately afraid for me. And I just told him it hurt my heart. I said, I'm sorry, Dad, but this is what I need to do for myself. This is who I am. And I love you, you know. And when I went back in June to go to my daughter's graduation, and it was Mother's Day. And the first thing that my father said to me was like, Ruthie, when you're ready to take that off your face, I've got the money for you. And I laughed at him. I was like, I'm sorry, Dad. It's not coming off. And there's 3 more stages. There's my cheeks that I'm going to do. And then there's my forehead that I'm going to do. But I'm not telling him that. I'm going to let him see that on his own.
Do you want to explain to the class a little bit about, I'm sorry, and my culture would call it like the 311. What do you call?
And what gut, so. Okay. And that means mark around her mouth. So bagat is the mouth, dagat so is the mark around it. So what this represents is her family, the village. It also represents the woman. So this would be shown to her or passed down through the family. For me, this represents it represents so much. But for the long and short of it is we are Matul and Yurok and Amtau.
Would you like to share with us a bit about what this land and this process means?
This place means everything to me. I mean, the history of how we came to be here is horrendous, but the childhood memories that I have of this place are precious, you know? So it's that balance of, people call it cause and effect, but it's balance. Like you have this traumatic effect, but after that traumatic effect, there's growth, there's strength, there's hope, there's endurance, there's resilience, there's all these beautiful things that come from that traumatic event.
Do you want to tell us maybe a little bit about like the rancheries here and like how that's like how it was pushed around and that sort of thing?
That's more of my sister question. Like she's really got all these like history, and she's actually bringing family that we didn't even know about back together. But yeah, there was several houses here and different families in each house. And over time, these plots have been sold out to non-Indigenous people, and so they lost. The rancheria only has a few spots up here now, but this is a really sacred place to me. Now we have property, you know, out in Petrolia, which is where my lineage is documented out there in Petrolia. But you know, on my Yurok side, you know, my family has property out in Wichipec, and so the whole area up here from up in, you know, Katamine is sacred to me because I have relatives that come from there. And so that was another thing that I was blessed with when we would go to those powwows across the nation. My grandparents would always make sure to tell us kids, like, hey, you come here with respect. You don't come here with thinking that you're better than anyone. And so I try to treat any place that I go as if it was this place, you know, with respect. I try to pick up trash whenever I can. In COVID, it was really hard because it was like, oh, I want to pick up that wrapper, but I'm afraid to, you know. So I'm trying to push past that fear still to this day.
For coming of age, which are our flower dance, for brush dance, which is for healing. I don't know if you guys realize this, but Sumig, this area, we believe that we come from the earth, from the Woga. The Woga were giants. They gave us charge to keep balance on the earth. And we do that by our different ceremonies. The ceremonies that we do here at the ocean are different than the ones that we do in the mountains, because we do one for the river, and we do one for the whole world, where we will take a walk from Klamath and go all the way up past Hupa and into the mountains, because that ceremony connects and balances the world. And it's been really interesting. Sometimes when that ceremony is done, there's been earthquakes that happen. And I just want to say, I think it's part of shaking up the world. You know?
Do you want to share with us a meaningful memory associated with our Humboldt Bay coastal ecosystems?
Yeah, they are interactive ecosystem. We are fortunate enough to be in an area where we have, fish such as salmonids, we have tunas, and we have, seaweed, which has been, my latest research, some bulk kelp to alaria kelp. We have a crab industry, so we have also a well-diverse ecosystem in our oceans.
Would you like to share with us any of your concerns with the rising water temperatures in Northern California?
Yes, some of my research has been also focusing in what will happen with some species when the temperature is going to increase. We noticed that in the case of bulk kelp, the difference of just 1 degree from 18 degrees to 19 degrees was life or death. Once the 19 degrees Celsius hit, the early developments kind of pause and they don't develop any further. So it's concerning, it's alarming, and we are losing ecosystem because of this global change. This other system over here is a system that some of the students developed because we want to bring back the sunflower sea star that disappeared. Remember that sea star that used to feed on the sea urchins? So it's not here anymore. I mean, there is some of them. So what we want is to bring it back, raise them here. Probably in the future we could release them into the wild. So that's this system over here.
What concerns do you have about climate change locally and its impact on our coastal ecosystem?
So the concerns I have for climate change on our current ecosystems and the aquaculture we do here, for one, it's the one that everybody talks about. It's the acidity of the water, right? We've had upwelling events here in Humboldt where I've seen the pH of the water go all the way down to 7.6, which is pretty low for seawater. And I do things myself here in the hatchery building to manipulate that, so the animals in here are seeing water that's in the regular range, but stuff that's out in the bay sees that a lot, and we see instances of mortality because the foreign product starts to get stressed in situations where it has really acidified water. And if there's other aspects that are also causing that, like changes in water temperature or changes in the environment they usually with climate change, it's not a one change that's happening in the parameters of the water. Usually it's multiple things because everything's connected with each other. So once you start changing the acidity, you're also changing something else and something else and something else, and they're all connected with each other. So it can stress animals really quickly because it's multiple factors coming in. So I see that as an issue with climate change. I guess you could also say any type of pollutants and stuff like that are the main drivers of climate change that can really affect the health of any type of living organism in the bay. So stories that I want to share with the histories of my culture and aquaculture to everybody is, when I grew up, we spent a lot of time in Baja California, Mexico, eating oysters, eating shellfish, a lot with my uncle, who's passed already. And, it was a great experience to just have seafood in general present with a big group of people, because it ends up being just a time that becomes very memorable. Everybody's enjoying themselves, and always having really good food present is huge with community. And it's something that I also experienced in my time in Hilo, is that there was always potlucks every weekend. People were always bringing the fish that they caught, the lobsters that they caught. We were bringing the oysters that we were farming, and we all got together and shared that food. And when you're doing that, you're making connections, you're learning from the people around you, and you start to, find ways to grow together, whether it's in business or it's in your own health. I think those type of moments can go by really quick, and after the fact you look back at them and you're like, man, that was a really fun time. So when they're happening is when you really have to step back and feel where you are and open yourself to talking to people and realizing that your food you're eating is really healthy and something beneficial to everybody.
So how do you show up as an ally?
For sure. So, in super basic ways, right? In terms of folks on the inside don't have access to the same kinds of resources that I do as a free person. So a lot of it is just listening deeply to folks, taking their ideas and figuring out how to translate them and make them real out here. So all of the ideas that drive Sea Forester, certainly I've worked on them and contributed to them, but they're not my ideas. This is something that we came to as a collective, kind of hiding and whispering in the back of a prison library, to be honest. And then another piece is just about funding and money. So I am super privileged, went to private school, and so I have the language that grant writers enjoy, right? All of these things, so that I can take those resources and redistribute them.
Another question that was posed earlier is the temperature difference in Humboldt Bay. Bays are way different than coastal zones. If we're on the ocean, you have a pretty reliable seawater temperature year-round. In Humboldt Bay, our incoming tidal water is very nice and cold. You feel that water coming out of that pipe right there, that's incoming water. It goes out into the bay, and this is a shallow water bay. It's miles of water that's about a foot deep, and then under that water is pretty dark mud, so it heats up quite a bit. On our outgoing tides, our water is probably 10 degrees warmer than the incoming tides. And that difference of hot water, cold water, 2 times a day, we have a semi-diurnal tidal cycle in California, can really stress the seaweed out. It doesn't know what to do. So something that we've done is we set up a thermal regulator in our header tank over there, that big gray tank, and it will shut off our pump every time that warm water comes through, and it'll turn the pump back on every time cold water comes through. So we essentially just keep this water chilled down all the time.
Does the UV ray beat up the water?
Not really. The water's going through it pretty fast. It's really just blasting whatever's coming through that water, but it doesn't get very hot.
What is it like? You think of all the other filters that's gone through?
Yeah. You're already working with super filtered water, so.
So my background professionally is as an environmental educator. So I was doing that for about 10 years. And then I was working in a school district in San Francisco where the school to prison pipeline was really acutely felt. And that really got me into reentry work and kind of took off from there to create Earth Equity. But in terms of cultural background, it's often me working against my culture and white culture, because there's a narrative that's pushed very strongly on white people and then on everybody else around placelessness and not being connected to place. And so for me, this work is really about getting into a better relationship with place, getting into acts of radical placemaking, and replacing carceral systems with really beautiful, interconnected family systems.
Yes.
Woo!
What's drawn me to Earth Equity is the fact that it focuses on people of reentry. That's definitely a underrepresented population. It seems like once you're in the system, how the basic society looks at you is once you're a criminal, always a criminal, once a user, always a user. You know, they don't think that you can change and turn your life around. At least there's nothing set up to help you to do that or any hopes for you to do that. Everything is against you to get you to turn your life around, even though their narrative is different. What's drawn me to Earth Equity is the fact that it gives me the hopes to be able to do what I want to do, and I want to be able to offer good foods to my community who is quote unquote in a food desert, but they're not actually in a food desert. They just have access to, you know, good foods. Like if you're not able-bodied, you can't go out and like gut a salmon and go and fish for that salmon or the sturgeon. It's just not that easy for you. And the same with eeling, you know, your eyesight starts going, you're older, you're not going to go out there and get your eel or, you know, so it's set up, the only store they have is nothing but junk food. I want my community to be offered good foods because I understand the relationship with diet and with disease.